Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the Frontline Changes report for the past 24 hours. So the previous one I did, like I said, like a 1.5 hours, but the subsequent half the day, there is no frontline changes. So the last frontline changes, the numbers was for 2 days, for 48 hours. So this is a new 24 hours of frontline changes, and a massive collapse have happened in two different regions. We're going to jump straight into the Pokrovsk front over in the eastern flank of MYRNOHRAD. So this is MYRNOHRAD, and you can see there's this massive frontline changes over on the east. And so we'll cover this in a while. But first thing first, just off Popivia. So this one is the northern flank of the Pokrovsk front. The Ukrainian mapping, Deep State UA have updated the map to show that the Russian forces have advanced and straightened the front line somewhat over in this region here. They have captured these tree lines as well as the northern tree line in the southwest of Popivia. So this is the front line change in this sector. Probably more to come because of the whole how the front line looks like. It should be pretty easy for the Russians to make further advances in this sector. The advance in this region is roughly around a kilometer, generally speaking. From this tree line to the next tree line is around 1.2 kilometers. So that is the range that we are looking at. The next frontline change is this big chunk around here. So first thing first, we need to talk about the geolocation first. In the south of Razine, this geolocation confirms the Russian forces swinging south from the previous position at Razine. They swing south in the direction of Novoikonomichny. I did mention before that this is a target over this sector. Novoikonomichny is a target for the Russian forces. And after the somewhat of a secure position, because the Russians did announce the capture of Razine, so pushing south, hitting into the rear of Novoikonomichny makes sense, as the Russians want to capture this position in order to create the wall, the eastern wall of MYRNOHRAD. So this is happening, this is confirmed. The rest of this big chunk here, this is the Russian claim. This is the latest Russian mapping as they close up all the impossible salient here, like and some developments. So this impossible salient, they take it out. They expanded the zone of control, generally speaking, as well as also close up this not so impossible, but still a salient in this sector. So if we zoom out a bit, combined with the geolocation, the Russian forces basically have closed down on Novoikonomichny from the east and the northeast, and they closed down on Mykolaiivka, taking possession of all the salient in the east, as well as closing down on Mykolaiivka from the south, from Myrolyubivka. So this is the general sense of the entire thing. But this is a huge sector, a very huge front line. This is ridiculously huge. Like from the north to the southernmost part is 10 kilometers. So in a straight line, this length here is this length is 10 kilometers. This is a very big front line, so we can't just talk about it in in the entirety. So in this northeast of Novoikonomichny, or east of Novoikonomichny, we can confirm the Russians have fully not confirmed, but Russian claims to have fully captured MYRNOHRAD with this frontline change along the water body all the way to the geolocation, which the Russian forces confirm is there. And if this is the opening left, I would say this is also, of course, getting rather impossible as a salient. Like we're talking about like merely a kilometer width, where Ukrainian forces have to defend, south of Kotiv, northeast of the northwest of MYRNOHRAD, one tree line here, one tree line here. It's not really very defendable. So the collapse of this salient here is kind of expected, I would say, especially with the development over at Razine. Without the development at Razine, then of course I would say that this defense here is still defendable. But because of the Russians' advance at Razine and the claim of capture over there, then this salient is clearly not doable. It's just not a defendable place. The advance for this sector is around almost 4 kilometers. The deepest part is 4.2 kilometers. So this is a massive drop of territory, definitely a massive collapse. And of course, a lot of people say that I like to abuse the word massive collapse. Have you tried to run 4 kilometers? When's the last time you run 4 kilometers? Run it, and then you let me know what you feel about 4 kilometers. Okay, so run already, you will know what it means. By 4 kilometers. So over in the other sector over here, we have this very ugly appendage, and this ugly appendage, according to the Russians, is an impossible salient. And I did mention this is an impossible salient as well, because of the developments around here. So, and with this opening only is just not very practical for reinforcement and resupply to the far end of this point, this sensitive part. This sensitive part is just not defendable. So this entire thing now got chopped off. Which is really kind of expected, as I mentioned how impossible this is. So this entire appendage of a salient is now entirely captured by the Russian forces, and in a more sensible development as well around Mikhailivka, which is west of Myro-Lubivka, the Russian forces closed down on Novoekonomichne from the south, from Mikhailivka direction, as well as creating a buffer to the west of Mikhailivka, as well as going down to meet Russian forces at Horodivka, which is further south around here. So these are all very sensible frontline change. Nothing here is like ridiculous. I think these are all very sensible, especially the last frontline change from this sector here is like a long time ago. This appendage is in a straight line is almost 7 kilometers deep. So this is a very, very long salient that is clearly, like I say, if 4 kilometers is pretty far to run, then 7 kilometers is nearly impossible in the contested and FPV infested front line, active combat zone. So it's just not possible. Around the Mikhailivka region, I will say that the buffer increase is probably around 600 meters. The advance further up north into the southern part of the Novoekonomichne is around 1 kilometer to 1.3 kilometers. So the Russian forces have entered into Novoekonomichne from the south, as they're going to create a foothold in the south in order to continue the operation up north. Mykolaiv is actually cut off with a river. So this one is Novoekonomichne. This sector here, this is Mykolaiv. There's a river cutting them into two. It's the same situation over here at Myro-Lubivka and Mikhailivka. It's basically cut off by the river as well, which is why they have a separate name. So probably the Russians have already entered Mykolaiv. We are expecting more frontline change and the collapse of this this entire sector here. I think this entire region here might collapse pretty quickly if the Ukrainians are unable to reinforce and bulk up in the number of troops and manpower in this sector here. So this on its own is a massive chunk of frontline change. This claim alone is 29.1 square kilometers. Very huge. And before we jump to the next frontline change at the Komar front, I also want to tell you, this is not a frontline change, but the Russian Defense Ministry has announced the capture of Sobolivka. So this is a continuation of this flanking operation on the west of Kupiansk. This is Kupiansk. And previously the Russians have announced the capture of Radkivka, then Pokrovsk. Both of it until today we still cannot corroborate the information, and in the latest information they mentioned Sobolivka. So basically they not just double down, but they triple down. Satu, dua, tiga. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Uno, dos, tres. I think so. Basically the Russians definitely is fully committed into this idea that they are flanking into the western part of Kupiansk. So in this manner, so this is like way too exciting to know. Like, it's a massive development, a flanking operation around a big city, and from like a neutral point of view, it's a very exciting development. However, there is no corroboration, but the fact that they have tripled down, we have to put a lot of like there might be some legitimacy there because they have tripled down. So I believe that we're going to have some crazy frontline changes in the near future, when they decided to drop some intel about those developments. We go on to the Komar front. Komar is over here. In the north of Komar, you can see this another piece of massive collapse in this region here. After the massive collapse of this this tap around here, water tap, tap, no. So some of these are Ukrainian updates, some of these are geolocation, some of these are Russian claims. So I'm going to break down one by one. First thing first, we talk about the capture of Piddubne. So Russian forces have confirmed full capture of Piddubne. So this settlement here, we can confirm the capture with firstly geolocations. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 geolocations confirm the full capture of the Russian forces in the lower two half, the southern two-thirds of the Piddubne. So Russian forces confirmed to have captured all of this position through this geolocation. And based on the latest Ukrainian mapping, they have mapped that the Russian forces have confirmed to have occupied Piddubne. As in their mapping, they show that the northern half of Piddubne is also under Russian control. So this confirms the full capture of Piddubne. And I did mention that it is unavoidable that this is going to happen because of the this big knife that has stabbed into Piddubne according to the Ukrainian mapping. So if you have such a ridiculous frontline change where they step all the way into the center, that means flanking out and capture the rest isn't an impossibility. It's probably very easy. Is for the defenders, it's just impossible, to crush in, because you will need a tremendously superior number of manpower to do that. So, which I know that they don't have for now. I think the best that Ukrainians can do right now is 1-to-1, and 1-to-1 is just not enough to do counterattacks. So that's what it is. And then over in Tolstoy, this piece here is Ukrainian mapping. They have mapped that the Russian forces have crossed the river of Zerka and into the southern part of Tortoise. And of course, this below here, this is confirmed based on Ukrainian mapping. And then so the Russian mapping have claimed that this advancement is much bigger. So this chunk here is Russian claim. So they have claimed that the Russian forces have taken most of Tortoise, almost full capture of it, and they have linked up with the Russian forces from the south, from Piddubne. So in a very triangular front line in their mapping, which means that this is very vague in terms of their mapping. But yeah, I mean, it's also not impossible if the Ukrainian forces has abundant position at Piddubne, which I did mention in the last time when we reported up Piddubne. I said that the speed of the advance means the Ukrainians did not defend Piddubne. So the Russian securing of Piddubne, and with the Ukrainian claim that the Russians have penetrated into Tolstoy, this region here is an impossible salient. This clearly is impossible. Thus, a Russian link up of the two forces, expanding out into Tolstoy, which totally sensible. It's not like it's totally like a not impossible thing. So covering all these more important ones, then we have this chunk here. This piece here is a Russian claim. So this covers from Perebudova all the way to the impossible salient in the north and linking up with the geolocation over at Piddubne. So based on the mapping like this, so we have the Russians map based on their claim that they have captured Perebudova. They have basically taken control of the impossible salient, which is impossible salients are impossible. So that is totally expected. And strengthening the front line or capturing all the forests in the east of Piddubne, which makes perfect sense because the Ukrainians can't possibly be at the forest when the Russians have already overrun this position. Not to mention previously there was a geolocation of an airstrike on this forest, clearly eliminating any Ukrainian resistance over that position. So this is also a very, very massive frontline change in this sector here. So distance wise, I don't think it's very important here because these are all expected changes. I would say from this piece of forest here is around 800 meters, 900 meters, and the advance from Piddubne all the way to the northernmost The last front line to the northernmost in our mapping right now is 3 kilometers in height. From Zirka all the way to the furthest point at Tolstoy is 3 kilometers as well. Confirmed one is 2 kilometers. If this is 2 kilometers confirmed, then Ukrainians probably did not defend this region as well. Which means that the Ukrainian forces basically have done a massive retreat from this sector with minimal resistance. That's probably what's happening around here. So this is the frontline change in the Komar front, in this Komar sector. Further south over in the Novoil, Rivnopil, Zelen P region, there is also some updates around here. This is based on Ukrainian mapping, so these are confirmed updates. So let me zoom in a bit so it's a bit clearer. Yeah, doesn't work well. So anyway, Zelen P, Novoil. So this impossible salient here in the this ridiculous salient here have been filled up quite a bit. 2/3 of it is filled up with Ukrainian mapping conceding that this impossible salient is impossible and totally taken by the Russian forces. And around Novoil, which the Russians have claimed control, the Ukrainian mapping have mapped just enough to not claim that it is captured by the Russian forces. They have considered that most of Novoil is under Russian control, firm Russian control. So this part here and this part here is left alone as a gray zone in the Ukrainian mapping so that they don't have to admit that they have lost Novoil as well. There is already a lot of settlements they have to concede they have lost, so they really don't want to concede more in their reports, but no, reality sucks for them. The distance from in the impossible salient is 2.5 kilometers. In depth, this change here is 2.5 kilometers. This is huge. And then this advance to the west is probably around 200 to 300 meters. So not that big, but this just like for them clarifying the front line, which they have refused to admit that they have lost the position. So these are all the frontline change in this sector. And there's one last frontline change. After this is over in the Zaporizhzhia front at the Kanyamsky sector. So this is Kanyamsky, where the battle of Kanyamsky is currently ongoing. We have no intel on this for a long time, but the Ukrainian mapping have updated the map in the east of Kanyamsky. In this sector here, in the north of Lubkove, wow, mouse. So this Lubkove, this is Stepove. So the Ukrainian mapping have updated that the Russians have advanced in this sector, has straightened the front line leading all the way to Kanyamsky. So this area here is Kanyamsky, by the way. This is Kanyamsky. So Russian forces have straightened the front line, securing Lubkove in the north, as well as securing the west of Stepove, capturing all of the tree lines and positions around here, straightening the front line. So this is a very rare update that we have of this update in this sector in Kanyamsky. So massive update as well, if you ask me. Because we definitely want all this information. The advance is around 1 to 2 kilometers. Sorry, 1 to 1.2 kilometers deep. So this is a pretty important front line to give us this update of this situation in this sector, the straightening of the front line. So these are all the frontline changes, and you can see the number of these in this calculation is just 3. Because these are only updates for 3 fronts, only 3 fronts: Pokrovsk, Komar, and Zaporizhzhia. And there are other front lines that is currently heavily under siege, and the Russians are pushing very hard. So we are talking about more frontline changes coming on the daily basis, I would say. And yesterday's already the previous frontline changes report was for 2 days. That was already averaging around 23 square kilometers per day. So today's one is huge. So 32.94 plus 16.23 plus 3.67. Total area captured in the past 24 hours is 52.84 square kilometers. So definitely it does seems to be ranging on the higher side. And we have a lot of frontline updates that we expect that is still not updated yet. So like I mentioned, this number is very big, but also expected. I did already mention a few frontline changes ago that I'm expecting quite some big numbers to come soon due to the number of impossible salient that is in our mapping, that the Ukrainians will eventually have to concede all the geolocation will just reveal that it is captured by the Russian forces. So I'm still expecting a bit more to come. So this is definitely not a norm for now, because we are expecting from the 20 square kilometers norm per day to become a 50 square kilometers norm per day in the near future. That will signify another level of reduction in Ukrainian defensive capability. Tentatively, not yet, but this is some signs. You can see the Ukrainian forces abandoning certain position in Komar front, causing this massive change. But I don't think it's yet. I don't think it's yet that the Ukrainian forces have reached the next level of decline in their combat capability, but it's coming soon, I would say. And so I believe that the time I mentioned in around March, I would say, when I calculated, I think the collapse is around will be like 3 to 6 months. I think that was March. So we are in July right now. So if 6 months down, that will probably be August or September. So yeah, so we are still on track, and to see the massive collapse is coming soon, within these 2-3 months. I think it will be very, very soon. So let's continue to watch and see how this goes. I have to go back and see when I actually did that calculation. Did I calculate correctly or not? Let me give a check. May be wrong. I may be wrong. Give me a second. Where is my update calculation? Give me a second. Hello everyone. Nandeska. What did I use? Grok or estimate? So that the video was done in okay, show you October in February 20th. The video estimated Ukrainian casualties and death, and so the estimation that was done in the end of Feb, so which is around March. So we can basically put it as March. So March will be the first month. So March, April, May, June, July, August. So it will be 1 more month. Well, then we probably will see some 50 square kilometers collapse. Let's see whether the calculation is accurate. And thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe. Happy birthday to you if your birthday today. And so check out this report. Some updates coming from the Gaza, as well as if you want to watch the calculation, I'll link it in the southern one, the one in the bottom. And I'll see you guys in the next update.